Welcome, friends. Thank you for joining us again. It's fantastic to have you with us. And once again, we are going through a series of interviews, conversations around some of the business journeys that people walk in life and how we walk out sometimes difficult situations in business and get to what God's got for us. Today, we've got Digby Beyleveld with us, who's a local businessman in Jeffreys Bay. And Digby's been with us for a number of years in the local church. Digby is a well-qualified man, studied in the finance realm and also in the kind of computer tech side of things as well, well-qualified, and has worked for a number of years in a multinational, the local branch of a multinational company, and had recent transitions in that. So Digby, thank you so much for joining me today. Fantastic to just engage with you, have a conversation, and what I'm really trusting for is to get some of what God's put in your heart and life over years and download that for people in a short space of time.
No.
So firstly, welcome. And I'd love for you to just maybe share a few thoughts around your business journey, what you've been through over the years and how you've got to where you are now.
Thanks, Alistair. It's a pleasure to be here. And to start, just hopefully I can impart something, and for the viewers out there to, spit out the bones and keep the meat, keep the good stuff. If I've got some good stuff to share, but I pray that that the Lord will be able to bring that out of me. I'm not used to being in front of the cameras and interview, but I think
we're excited to receive.
Yeah, I think to start off with, so like you said, my academic background has always been in finance. Largely finance, but I studied and did a degree in information systems as well as economics, and my postgrad in economics as well. So that has sort of followed me throughout my entire career, which has, I think, I was just really fortunate and blessed that the Lord springboarded me into a number of roles that were well beyond my capacity and ability. Starting with a locally listed group with its base in the Eastern Cape. Reaching senior financial positions there, and then joining, like you said, a multinational group listed on the Australian Stock Exchange to be the CFO for Africa. So it's been an amazing journey of God doing a lot with a little, without trying to sort of humble brag or trying to be overly humble. I can clearly see throughout, as I look back over sort of my career, and I'm 40 this year. I've been able to, or not I've been able to. God has placed me in positions that I would otherwise. It doesn't make logical sense for me to have been in those positions. So that's sort of the high level journey. Fast forward to sort of 2018. Some big changes within our group, some private equity acquisitions globally, resulting in mergers across the world, and I'd sort of made a decision. I don't know whether or not that was the way I wanted to move forward, but long story short, resulted in myself and obviously a lot of my employees and our employees getting retrenched and losing their jobs, which can be seen to be a daunting prospect. But I sometimes think in light of adversity, it's the Lord does amazing things, and it's when you let that fear of not having the safety of a job, when you overcome that, or when the Lord overcomes that in your own heart, He puts you into an amazing space where you're actually then able to go, okay, well, now I have to do something. Lord, what do you want me to do? So that's where I'm at now.
That's amazing, because this transition from that business environment you were in, all those changes happened before lockdown. Am I right?
Yeah. So it's a long process. Obviously you've got competition commissions and all sorts of things like that, resulting in can be quite a drawn out process. It can be it's quite an emotional process, because you're dealing with not necessarily for me as well, but for just everyone who's worked with you for a number of years, losing their employment, not knowing what the future holds, having walked beside, laughed, cried with guys for a number of years. It's quite a thing to walk with them, walk beside them, as they go through this process. Going into lockdown, going into COVID, it becomes more of a reality, more of a okay, well, it's not raining jobs anyway in South Africa. It's not raining jobs in industry in Jeffreys Bay, that would be able to absorb sort of the number of positions, and then you add lockdown into the mix, and it just becomes this thing which is a breeding ground for fear and anxiety for a lot of people. So that was where my heart was. I'm going, I've had these guys, worked alongside them for the last decade. They're great guys and girls, ladies, men, women, very qualified, very good at what they do. How do we find these guys jobs? And that's sort of where I've transitioned into recently.
That's amazing. I think even having gone through that over the last year and before the lockdown time, you've journeyed some of these things in your heart and your mind and practice. You've been through it now before. We're now, right now, where we sit, like you say, globally, but especially in our local area, there's people facing things like this for the first time. That the retrenchment process, the clamp down on your business, where there's times of trouble, there's just a lack, and we get into those places in life. And what's some of your thought processes, some of what you think is a good way to walk through that when you find yourself in a quick change? You've been experiencing one thing in your business life or your personal finances. Suddenly, there's a lot of quick external changes, and you're sitting in a time of lack. How do you process that? What are some of the things one should do, shouldn't do? What are your thoughts around that?
I find what I do in that type of situation is, historically and hopefully not going forward, is it becomes an all-consuming, okay, I've got this major problem on my hands, how to deal with it. With anything, with major changes in business, whether or not it's pre-COVID or what it is, what's happening now is, and you take on this huge burden. Yes. And I find it's when I move my identity away from who I am in the Lord, who I am in God, and His sovereignty, who He is, and I take on that burden for myself, and it's like it's my lack, it's my ability to provide, or it's you're losing your job, the world is ending, and it's when I find when I have to remind myself and ask for forgiveness and go, it's actually not about me. It's not about my ability or inability. It's not about my lack. It's, do I remember that it's actually God? The cattle on 1,000 hills aren't mine. They're His. And it's when you're able to get into that space, which is not an easy space to get into. I'm not the first one to get into it that quickly. Then you start realizing, well, actually, hang on a second. This quick lack and this quick problem, whatever it is, it's He can overcome it. Without trying to overly spiritualize things, but it's when it becomes in your heart and you become consumed with it. It's when you stop thinking clearly. Like I said, I like to think through things logically. I've been told I don't come across as highly empathetic, which I think I am, but
I feel the warmth.
Yeah, I think it's in the finance. It's a finance thing. It's when you become overly emotional about decision making, because that's what it boils down to, is decision making. What's my next steps? And sometimes you can't see the next steps, but you've got to be thinking about your next steps, and you've got to be asking, Lord, what are my next steps? Where do you want to lead me into? What are the plans? What are the purposes you have for my life? I'm not going to let myself believe that my plan and purpose is this is it. This is the decision has been made. I've lost my job, or my business is closing. My creditors are hounding me, whatever it is, and this is done. I'm done for. That's not you can't believe that that's the plan and purpose that God has for your life. Difficult place to go and say, okay, I'll take hold of that. But you somehow have to, and you've got to trust, and you've got to ask God, please give me that measure of faith that this is not the end, and that I can move forward in it.
So somehow in this, we're not operating in a vacuum, that it's me in the situation, but there's something bigger outside of that, and that's a loving Father who's got a plan and a purpose bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the key. Is who am I in my identity in God? I'm a child of God, and He's God, and He owns everything. It's all His. All the great ideas that have ever been. I believe God places those in in people's hearts.
Yeah.
I'm talking the good ideas, not the bad ideas. I believe that God can place those ideas in men and women's hearts to start businesses, to own businesses, to run businesses, small, big, scalable businesses even. And I think it's a case of, I think that's what he wants to do. I think what he wants to do is he wants to raise up. And I think it's not just a now. People often talk about seasons, and I really feel God's raising up a generation of business leaders, and I think He's been wanting to do it all along. I don't think all of a sudden He's wanting to. I definitely think there will be sometimes some seasons, but I think it's if when we open ourselves to that and go, okay, hey Lord, what is it that you want me to do, and ask for those revelations. Seek God and say, Lord, what am I good at? What can you make me good at? Like I said before, I wasn't good enough to be in a lot of the positions I've been in, but through it all, He supernaturally allowed me to progress and not make a terrible name for myself in my profession.
It's good to us. When we had chatted previously, you'd mentioned the concept of humility. When you go through a time of lack, there's something about a humility factor that you felt that you'd walk through.
Yeah. So take with us currently what's happening. Obviously, I like to win, and I like to do well. And so when you're in this situation where you have a whole lot of people who look up to you in the business and are co-leading a business, and all of a sudden everything's sort of like tumbling down, and you're basically competing to keep all these people employed. And when the decision doesn't go my way, I found myself going, oh man, I took that upon myself. And I haven't won, I've lost. And the result of me losing is 70 odd people losing their jobs. And I just really felt that the Lord say to me, it's like you're taking on that loss, like as though that loss was yours, because you'd be so used to success. But if you're taking on the loss, which means you're taking on all the successes as though they were yours as well, and not mine. And I felt myself going, yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been pride settled in my heart, going, I'm very good at what I can do, and I can work my way around this, as opposed to going, you know what, actually, all the successes that, from taking a business that's on the brink to a successful business, I've taken that success upon myself. Like, look at me, look what I've been able to do in my own heart. I'm not necessarily the type of guy that's going to run around town and go, look at me, look what I've done. But in my own heart, I've gone, I should be able to make this thing work because I've done it before. Where it's actually, no, it was the Lord working through me, was able to, help me through decisions to get to a certain point. And those were His successes, not mine. Those to His glory, not my glory. In the same way as He's saying, you don't take this burden on yourself, because it's not your failure. It's not your failure. So yeah, it was a lesson in humility. I tend to learn a lot of lessons through the days. I'm not perfect, that's for sure.
We know that for all of us, there's opportunities. How do you try and engage in that new opportunity process?
Yeah, I think the one thing I've learned is, well, it's actually, I break it down to those three things. It's one is motive. What is your motive? If you've come to Digby 10, 15 years ago and you say, okay, there's a business idea, do you want to get involved in it? My motive initially was, okay, well, what's my return? How much money can I make? Is the thing scalable? Can you turn it into a 1 to million to 10 million to 100 million rand? So the youngster in me, when I say youngster, I still believe I'm a youngster,
Of course.
is going, how big can this thing get? How much can I make? What's my motive behind it? And I think that's an important thing, because I think sometimes God wants and has desires for you, but He wants you to also get to a place where you're able to handle the success. So I think if your heart is in the right place and your motives are good, kingdom motives, motives that would, I want to be able to provide for my family. I'd love to be able to provide employment for people out there. I want my kids to get a good education. I want to be able to advance the kingdom and sow into the kingdom. Those are good motives. If the motives stem from a place of, everyone wants not to lack. I think that's, if no one wants to have that lack. But if the motive comes from a place of greed, I think that becomes a tricky place to then start looking. I think so. That's the starting point for me. I believe there's a sense of just God wanting to release people, and specifically into business, when they're ready for it. I think it's when your heart's not in the right place, and then if your heart's not in the right place, it doesn't mean it's not aligned to God. So it's that many of the plans in the man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So I want to prevail in business, but my heart's not aligned to the Lord. Then it's biblically, it's not, my purpose is not going to prevail because my purpose is not the Lord's. Right. So when my motive is aligned, well, then my motive's the same as God's, my heart's the same as God's, hopefully, then the Lord's purpose will prevail, which is now all of a sudden my purpose. Because it doesn't talk about my purpose prevailing, it always talks about the Lord's purpose prevailing. So as long as I align my heart, well, then we can go.
Love it.
The second thing I think is just looking for opportunities, and looking for opportunities means you actually have to look and think about it, and it's about just changing that mindset and going, okay, looking at any situation and going, okay, well, is this a business here? Is there an opportunity here to start a business? Is a business opportunity to make profit, to make money? If that's your goal, I'm talking specifically business here, because the goal of any business is you want to make a profit, and to make a profit, obviously you have to get income, and your income has to exceed your expenses. There are obviously going to be organizations which are non-profit. It's not about scaling up. It's merely about existing to provide a service. But if I talk about it specifically within business, it's about looking for those opportunities. We're going, okay, where is there a need? I'm constantly looking for needs in the marketplace, in and around me, and going, well, can I figure out a way to meet this need? And are there 1,000 other people potentially doing it, or not? Okay, there's not. Okay, well, how do I meet that need? But it's about looking. If you're not looking, actively looking, you're not gonna see anything. It's very easy to just go through, month by month, 8 until 5, year by year, and you don't come up with a single business plan, for example, or idea, because it's not something you're wanting to do. And I think it also comes out of a little bit of fear, where a lot of people think, well, I'm not a businessman. I can't start a business. I don't know how. And most businessmen don't. They start, how many businesses do we know have started in these multinational, IT groups and whatnot, that have started in garages, or, guys have dropped out of, uni, and they weren't businessmen. Mark Zuckerberg didn't start off as, I'm running a massive multinational, and then I started Facebook. Yeah. He had a brilliant idea. It wasn't also necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? A unique idea. It wasn't the first. It wasn't. He didn't invent social media, for example. He just took an idea that already existed and improved on it. So that's the thing as well. When looking, you don't have to come up with a new idea necessarily. You can you can often take an idea and improve it for your market. MySpace.
I love that thought process.
MySpace existed. You speak to most kids under the age of 30, or most people. Any kid, any person under the age of 20, you go, how's your MySpace account looking? They're going to look at you with a blank face. Yet it was the largest social media platform on the planet not so long ago. So a partial idea has been taken, and it's just been improved upon. So I think that's the thing, is looking in your market and saying, well, if you travel somewhere, oh wow, that's a good idea. Can I bring that back into my market? And then the third thing I would say is actually taking action, stepping into the idea. I think, through my life, I've had lots of ideas, lots of great ideas, and I've never acted on them. And then you look back over time, you're looking to go, and you're seeing businesses start up. You're going, yep, I had that idea 10 years ago, and you're going, it's making me slightly angry that I didn't do that now. It's a great idea, but it's also, okay, well, maybe pride settling into my heart, which is probably a weakness of mine. But it's actually about stepping into that idea. If you've aligned your plans and purposes with the Lord, you're looking for opportunities. You see an opportunity, you see a gap, and then going, you know what? I'm going to actually step into this. I'm going to actively pursue it. I'm going to tell people, okay, this is what I'm doing, yes, and then actively doing it. and you might not come right. The business might not work. But what if it does? And trust that it does. And I think that's a season where I think COVID is going to release a lot of people into. It's that they're being forced into it.
How do you take that into your next steps? And it's identifying these things, and then you get to a decision making process in life. How do you process some of those big decisions in your financial or business context for you?
Yeah, like I said, I approach things very, very logically, or at least I like to believe I do. And
So do I.
yeah, and like I said as well, it might not come across as the most empathetic way of approaching things, but what it does is it takes emotion out of the equation, and when you're faced with decisions to be made, it's generally about choices. But what I find is I like to bucket my decision making process. So things are either junior economy or senior economy. And what I do is with senior economy or junior economy items or decisions to be made are those decisions which aren't going to make or break a company. It's not going to have a devastating impact if I make the wrong decision. And senior economy are those big ticket items, those more strategic items, what are the direction are we taking this business in, and those big questions that you have to make. And it's taking those junior economy items and spending as little time as possible on junior economy so you can spend more time on senior economy. And it's about taking those junior economy decisions, making those decisions quickly, and then parking it to the side. And over time, what will happen is you'll make a lot of wrong decisions and you'll make a lot of right decisions in the junior economy items. But you'll learn from the wrong decisions. But they haven't sunk your business. But what it has done is it has allowed you to be able to focus on those big ticket items and actually spend more time, because very often the decisions a decision actually takes you one way or another way, especially a senior economy item. It's going to take you in one direction or another direction. Both directions might not necessarily lead you to profit. One actually might lead you to I'm going to say business destruction. Businesses go through these cycles, and what they have is these strategic inflection points where your business might be growing, and it hits a point and something changes in the markets, something changes around you, and it's decision time. And that's what I call a senior economy decision time, where I either have to pivot and adjust. I hate the word pivot. I have to adjust in order to survive, or I just keep on doing what I'm currently doing, and I fall off the face of a cliff. And it's about being able to look for those strategic inflection points, those senior economy items, be able to spend real time understanding where I am in my business, what's happening with the market, and there's so many massive businesses that have gone through those strategic inflection points, and they haven't necessarily adjusted.
It's such a powerful principle for me, because even in one's walk with God, and I think especially in one's walk with God, when you feel God has said something to you previously, you almost want to hang on to that forever.
Yeah.
Because God said it, and that's it, and we can never adjust anything and never change anything. But what if God is saying something new now? And then in the business context, obviously, what is God saying today for what is happening now in this environment? And if we miss that boat, we miss not just a business opportunity, but the will of God and what He's purposed for us. Yeah.
God might say, this is a season for you to do X, Y, and Z, or be in a season. And so you hear that clearly, and then you start living this season, this pathway, and nothing will derail me from this. And you stop listening. You stop being vigilant, not being paranoid, but you stop being vigilant, you stop listening, and you're going, well, the Lord's telling you, well, now's the time on this path is finished. Now's the time to go in this direction. Yes. Similarly in business, if you're not looking for those strategic inflection points, if you're not listening to what's happening around you and what's happening in your market, you can come undone. I'm just trying to think of an example. BlackBerry, probably one of the largest phone manufacturers on the planet, not so long ago. How many years ago now? Yeah. And there was this strategic inflection point where competitors were coming in with new technologies, looking at the way people, dealt with smartphones, and they didn't pivot. I've used that word again. They didn't look at that strategic inflection point and say, okay, we need to adjust our model. And again, they fall on the face of a cliff. Kodak, there's so many companies which have risen to massive heights and didn't see the change, what's happened around them, and didn't adjust to those changes. So I think, that ties in with senior economy. When you're making decisions, try to put as much time and effort into senior economy, and as little time as you can possibly into junior economy, and learn through that decision-making process of making junior economy decisions, because the outcome is not devastating if you get it wrong.
When you talk about that too, I'm sure starting off, some of this for you becomes natural. You probably don't even stop and think senior, junior, just becomes very natural process for you. But in the early years, I'm sure one can let those senior ones slip into the junior bucket by mistake when you're not clear on discerning them, and vice versa. Was that a very deliberate process for you, learning to think that way, or just automatic?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's also a case of you want to be actively trying to learn outside of just in terms of your business environment. There's so many great business books out there, and principles, and trying to understand. How do I know what I need to focus on? I look at like there's Andrew Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about you've got these quadrants. Things are either urgent in the top half, and not urgent in the bottom half, and important and not important. And we find ourselves strategically important. We find ourselves doing the stuff that's urgent but not strategically important, the stuff that needs to get done all the time, and you're not focusing on the things that are in terms of your long-term views, long-term visions, long-term strategies as much. You get sucked into everything that's just urgent right now. It has to be done. So in terms of that decision-making process, I think it has something. It's something you learn over time, but it's something I had to actively do, because I like to be right. So I don't like to make a wrong decision. So what ends up happening is, especially early on in your career, and especially me being in a position where I'm in these positions where, well, should I be here? Do they know I'm not potentially in the right spot here? And you're wanting to make certain you don't mess up. So you make certain that every little decision is meticulously gone through, and it might be silly decisions, where you might be in a business where you paying 100 million rand a month in costs, or 200 million rand a month in costs, and now you're sitting there, spending 3 hours, running through a costing of a 4,000-5,000 rand expense, and you're going, I have to get this right, and you're going, well, no, you don't. I must actually focus on the bigger items to focus on. Right. And it's something I find myself actively having to do, because you very quickly get sucked into the little trivial things.
That's very good. So to deliberately design these frameworks for yourself that help protect you over time, it's fantastic. These can be challenging times, can't they? These business, financial things can feel all-consuming, and they can take over your life, which can take over your quality of life. And how is it something you deal with?
Yeah, I think I've had many times in my career and in business where you get consumed by what's happening. And it's those, you wake up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's the first thing you're thinking about. And you think about it through the entire day, and you fall asleep when you eventually fall asleep, and you're thinking about it, and it just becomes the cycle of it being consumed. And the way I've had to deal with it again is through, okay, well, what's my identity? And is my identity in this all-consuming problem, or is my identity as a child of a loving God? And then it becomes a stage for me to work through my pride, and then work through, what I actually need to ask for forgiveness for this, because I've let my focus shift from God onto this huge problem that stands before me, which I've raised an idol of this all-consuming it's affecting my heart, it's affecting my mind. Luckily, I think I can compartmentalize away from family, but I think for a lot of people, when you're not at your best, you're not be able to give your best towards your family, you're not be able to give your best to even your business if you're letting this thing consume you. So for me, it's a case of going, Lord, I'm sorry I've raised this idol. Please help me break it down. And not necessarily live in fear, because that's what it becomes. It becomes a case of, how do I get through this? I need to, and it becomes an I thing. I need to, and it's my idol to, or I'll call it idol. I need to brash it down, but it's my this problem is mine to overcome. And you just got to realize some things are not for you to overcome. Some things you're not going to be able to, in your own strength. And it's about asking, Lord, how am I going to do this? And I'm not going to let this thing consume me.
I think that for me, that brings up such another valid aspect of all of this. I mean, I think in all of these processes, from transitioning in a time of lack and seeing what God's got for you, all of these things, you've said it quite often, to get away from that pride thing, to can't do it yourself. And obviously we do that with the Lord. But what role do other people play in this around you, What role do you... Is there a place where you're just not going to be able to do this successfully on your own, all these processes? Or what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two aspects to that. There's one, obviously, within the business, from the business side of things. So you've got I need to be partnered with good people in business, and then on the home front, and then I suppose as well, and just on the friendship front, having good mentors, good sounding boards. But yeah, just having that support system at home. I'm blessed to have an amazing wife, awesome kids, and it's about perspective, and it's when you're able to shift away from this problem, whatever it is, and actually look and go, okay, well, I've got this amazing family. My kids, they love me, and I love my kids, and that's actually what's important. What's important in that context, and then your relationship with the Lord, it's I'm a child of God, and He loves me. This isn't really that big a problem. It seems like a huge problem, but it's not really a huge problem. I have this relationship. So I think having a great foundation in relationships enables you to sort of see the bigger picture, I think, sometimes. Because when you're in business, when you're in a large business, when you're starting even a small business, you can become very quickly consumed by what's going on around you, and it's important, I think, to make time for the things that are really important.
Thank you so much for sharing just some thoughts, some principles, some practical things, and I think more than anything, just what comes across from your heart. We can really just see and appreciate, the journey you've walked with the Lord. Now He's been faithful to you and your family and in your business context. Thank you for sharing. I think it has been very encouraging for a lot of people.
No, pleasure.
And just to wrap up then and say, thank you for being with us. I'm sure you can hear and see that the kingdom of God truly is advancing in the business realm with amazing ideas that are happening and rolling out as we speak. And the same opportunities are there for you. Hope you have a fantastic day. Bless you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that's been an encouraging time for you, just listening to the heart that we've had shared so wonderfully through that interview. And I want to really encourage you in this time. God's got something for you. If you find yourself in a place that you just need some prayer in and around your finances or business, or you need someone to chat to just with a few thoughts and advice, you can contact our church in this time. We've got a number of people who've made themselves available, mature men and women in the church who've really walked the road with God and have got something to share and impart. You can contact our Victory Church hotline at the moment. Contact that number that's showing on the screen, and we'll be able to set up a time that someone can connect with you, pray with you, encourage you, and speak into your situation a bit. So bless you, and we are really trusting that God will unfold His purposes in your specific situation in this time. Thank you.